And welcome everyone to the RSP Film Room. It is episode number 65, and it's a pleasure for me to welcome back a guest who I had on last spring. And we watched Brashad Perriman, and it was one of my favorite episodes because of two things. One is that we got to talk about a point and really delineate a point that's so important, which is that athletic ability can get obscured by a lack of technique. And I think that we saw that very much with a guy who's a promising player in Brashad Perriman, but not exactly, we concluded, at least, we felt like that the jury's still out on what he's going to have to offer and what his transition's going to be like. And boy, did we get a lot of commentary on that particular show with Mr. Gene Clemens. But I do find it curious. We haven't heard a lot about from those Ravens fans since that point, have we? About Mr. Perriman?
Well, no, I mean, I think it's difficult to defend someone when they're not on the field,
Yes, it is.
and it's not necessarily a slight on Perriman, but if you look at the type of injury that you're talking about, one could argue that technique helps with with remaining away from those types of things. Especially when you're talking about pulls and strains and things of that nature. It gets real dicey. Technique usually helps, and so while the jury's still out on him, and while I think that he still could be, I think he has a chance to be someone who can, produce over time. I just think that if you were looking for a ready-made product out of college, you were probably looking in the wrong direction.
Yep, and that's an awesome point. And I think another thing to bring up that you just mentioned, and I'll give it this context, is I think that anyone who I have on this show, it's a given for me already that they're rooting for the players to actually do well. We're not sitting here trying to find ways for them to be bad or to criticize players. We're just looking at what we see and telling the truth about what we see. And we may be right. We may not be right. We may see what we see and it may work out differently. I just actually, Gene, I just got an email or a post from Trey Williams' uncle, who saw my boiler room and just said that he just wanted to thank me for actually just being straightforward and fair and balanced about the guy, and I know that some folks will say, well, that may be because you probably liked Trey Williams if somebody said that, but if I did like him, but I commented on the fact that pass protection and running inside were real concerns, and if he wanted to be more than just a really talented, running back, but a complete running back in the league, he was going to have to learn those things. And he actually said to me that Williams saw the video and it was something that kind of spurred him to consider a little bit more to continue working. So, which was really, it's rare. I mean, I don't think that I'm going to have that kind of happen on a regular basis, but it just tells you, I'm just trying to delineate the point that, we're rooting for these guys,
Mm-hmm.
and and we're just pointing out what we see and trying to learn together, share ideas, and anybody who's listening, hopefully they get a chance to learn as well. And sometimes it tends to be the players themselves, so that's kind of cool.
Well, I mean, I think one of the things that we do at Football Game Plan definitely is we're always about the player and from the player perspective. I mean, Emery, former running back, I was a receiver slash tight end. Teron Davenport, he was a wide receiver as well. We also hook up and link up with Brandon Howard a lot, who what I'm saying, who is wide receiver extraordinaire. He's all about technique, and we talk about those things all the time. So when we're looking at players from the perspective of other players. We're not looking at it from a perspective of, hey, I just think this guy may not be good or this guy may. Everything that we said about Perriman, everything that we said is stuff that can be corrected. It's stuff that you can improve on, but you can't teach his speed, you can't teach his size, and so those things he has in spades. So we're just looking at him and saying, man, he could be so much better if. And so that's really what we try to focus on at Football Game Plan, is really looking at the ifs and how do we get those ifs to be, yes, he does it.
Yep, and we're from the same hymn book on this particular topic in terms of the motivation and perspective of what we're trying to do, and it's why I love having the football game plan crew here, and we've had Brandon on and Emery on this year thus far. I know we got Tehran scheduled on again for a second appearance coming soon, and it's always fun to have the crew, join us here. And Gene, we're going to get started with two guys. You wanted to look at a double dip in a way of comparing and contrasting what we've got with quarterback Trevone Boykin of TCU and Baker Mayfield of Oklahoma. Tell me a little bit about why you made this choice.
Well, there's been a lot of spice behind Baker Mayfield. I think his story is phenomenal, and I think that that's what a lot of people are seeing. They're seeing the story, and they're going, "Man, this is a great story, and this kid has game." So we don't want to take anything away, but I almost I almost laugh because Baker Mayfield, to me, him and Trevone Boykin are both similar quarterbacks in the way in which they get things done, even down to the type of offenses that they run. They're very similar. So it's interesting to me when I hear people say, well, Baker Mayfield, he's really improving his draft stock as a quarterback. But then they say Trevone Boykin, wow, he can be a great receiver in the NFL, and I'm going, wait a minute. These statistics that Baker Mayfield are putting up, these numbers, what he's doing, Trevone Boykin's been doing that now for a few years.
Yeah.
And so I really wanted to get an opportunity to look at both of them side by side versus similar defenses in the way they're run and see if there's really differences or if maybe we should look at both players and say, hey, these guys can just be good quarterbacks in the NFL because as we both know when and you said you're starting to break down quarterbacks, as we're looking at the quarterback class for this year, there's not a lot of first round picks that are just jumping off the page. Like, man, this is a quarterback, rich draft. But we know that there are a lot of people who can possibly be um, guys who 2, 3 years into an NFL program can be starters. And so those two guys, I think, are guys of that ilk that can be guys who can come in, hold a clipboard, learn some things behind a veteran for a few years, and then very, very much like a Tyrod Taylor, who I believe is the blueprint now for these guys. After holding that clipboard, step in and be confident in their skills that they bring to the table.
Yeah, I love that, and it's funny because you look at I kind of went on a rant um, yesterday on my blog talking about the unfortunate realization that I'm still a Cleveland Browns fan, and and I was talking about quarterback development, and I think that one of the things that occurred to me is that we put Robert Griffin on a win now plan. They drafted Kirk Cousins at the same time, and Kirk Cousins, whether I think it was indirectly by accident, unintentional, but kind of par for the course still, that he somehow ended up on a 4-year plan.
Mm-hmm.
He got playing time, he got benched, he made mistakes. Coach has still said, we believe in him. Let's give him some time. He continued to get in and out of the lineup and play. And lo and behold, he's making incremental improvements on the field. Now, I don't know if he's
Incremental, by the way.
incremental. Yes. I mean, I still think that he hasn't seen a tight pocket that he has. When there's a tight pot, when he has to make a tight pocket throw and drive the ball, which he can't do, he still does. He still sees that opportunity and tries it anyway. And there isn't a higher risk scenario that he doesn't try to avoid in situations that I'm thinking, you're not that kind of hero. You're not Brett Favre, but he still
Mm-hmm.
he still says he still thinks that. So, but I mean, I look at that I'm right there with you. I mean, I even look at a guy like, I think I joked the other week that, and I wasn't joking, but I was like saying this is just a random thought because I'm watching Tyrod Taylor play, and I was looking at some Auburn tape and saw Nick Marshall again, and I thought to myself, you know, I wouldn't mind Rex Ryan and the Bills saying, how can we pry Nick Marshall away from his kick returner defensive back role and let him have like a long sit down and observe and study as a quarterback behind Tyrod Taylor. Wouldn't that be a novel thing?
Well, and it's funny that you say that because I look at Buffalo and what they're doing right now. EJ Manuel, everyone is like, well, EJ is terrible, and EJ is this, and EJ is that, and they look at that Bills game in London. Go back and look at the stats of EJ Manuel from that game.
Yeah,
There's nothing about those stats that say awful.
yeah, no,
There's stats that says inconsistent. There's stats that says still developing, but there's nothing about those
yeah,
statistics that say awful. And last time I checked, the Bills still had a chance to win that game if their defense would have came to play that day, which it didn't. But then you look at Brock Osweiler, who has a one touchdown, one interception game against New England, who nobody will mistake for having a phenomenal defense. And all of a sudden, he's the next coming. Like, wait a minute, Brock Osweiler he had an average game, and all of a sudden now he's a stud. But
yeah,
he's been sitting behind people now for how many years?
exactly, exactly.
So he's had that opportunity. He was never thrown to the wolves, and so it's
Yeah,
interesting to see how these things go. There's this ebb and flow in the NFL of who gets an opportunity to apprentice, and then who's not allowed to learn and to grow in
ab-
there. I think the same thing's happening to Johnny Manziel right now.
I think
To be honest with you,
absolutely is. And I've mentioned this, and there's, obviously there's two dynamics to this. I mean, and they can be interrelated and sometimes they're exclusive, but like the exclusive side is that just in general, quarterbacks, I think people are way too impatient with if they're picked in the first couple of rounds. And there's this whole, well, you should know after 2 years. No, you shouldn't. No, you shouldn't. And I've talked to scouts, and I've talked this to death on this show about that. I think the NFL tries to flash fry QB development rather than actually slow cook it and give them the time that they've invested that kind of money in to let them develop and build and be patient with it, especially if you're going to draft a guy like Manziel, if you know that he's not the maturest guy right now. Because I'm looking at the Brett Favre CBS article, and doesn't sound that much different to me with Brett Favre than what we're seeing with Johnny Manziel, except that there's no cell phones and social media during Brett Favre's tenure when he'd show up drunk to practice. So I mean, that was, to me, there are some interesting similarities there. Also, even with playing style, even though Favre was an Iron Man with an arm that few ever had, but certainly you look at that, and there's that dynamic, and then there's the other dynamic that, I mean, we're kind of talking around here, but I mean, there's a recent study in The Economist that, I think it's not in The Economist, it's the Economic Journal of Sports, I believe. It's an academic journal that basically has looked at data over, I think, a 10-year period that shows that black quarterbacks actually get demoted faster and have a less opportunity to earn their job back than white quarterbacks at this stage of the game. And that's something that, I mean, when we look at that, I mean, we're still in a league that I would say, I'm just going to put out there, I mean, we're still in a league today that still has a ways to go in terms of thinking about the dynamics and diversity and how that works, and how to kind of step out of the way of itself in terms of unconscious behaviors, as well as in some cases, sadly, conscious behaviors. So,
yes, and I think that we've seen it too much, and quite on, and I know as well as you do. We've talked about it ad nauseum. We don't want it to turn into necessarily an issue of race, but it's out there. And I believe that there's a portion of it that may be out there with these two quarterbacks that we're going to look at, which is why I want to just be able to look at it from a standpoint of, here's the film. We're looking at these two young men. What are the similarities? What are the differences? If I was a guy and I was looking to draft a quarterback to develop, because I don't think either one of these guys are guys that can come in right now and run an NFL offense. But if I'm looking at someone to develop, who would I choose? And trust me, if I'm a coach, I can care less about your color. I just want to win games. And
Exactly.
and anyone who's ever coached with me or ever been around me when it comes to football and my high school teams, when I coached in college, even down to youth league, I want the best 11 players out there and color be damned. So it really is a good opportunity for us to look at both guys and discuss the merits of what they do on the field rather than what people see when they take their helmets off.
Yep, very well stated, and I appreciate that you did because I mean certainly we're going to have some folks out there who will probably jump to one conclusion or another or want to turn it into one thing or another, especially when I broach the topic that I just did. But I don't want to be coy about it either as we're sitting there, when we're talking, because it's just like, look, we know, and we'll leave it at that. And if it's something that you can't get over, then don't watch it. That's okay with me, and I'm sure it's okay with Gene. We'll keep doing what we're doing, and we got plenty of folks who are watching. So let's go ahead and get this thing started, and we will begin. Who do you want to start with? Do you want to start with Boykin or Mayfield?
Well, let's start with Boykin. He's been doing it the longest in the same. Let's go with him.
Okay, good deal. So, as our time honored tradition is to make this program run a little longer, I will say that the videos posted here at the RSP Film Room are not hosted on the server, and that the original video content is not considered the property of the RSP Film Room. The videos are considered to be used under the Fair Use Doctrine of the United States Copyright Law, Title 17, U.S. Code Sections 107 through 108, 118. And the videos are used on the site for editorial and educational purposes only, and that the RSP Film Room and its humongous staff of one do not claim ownership of any original video content. The RSP Film Room and its staff do not use said video clips in advertisements, marketing, or for direct financial gain. All the video content in each clip is considered owned by individual broadcast companies, and it's stuff that we're getting from Draft Breakdown, which are just cut-ups of games. We're not even watching entire games play by play for our own learning benefit to discuss technique, concepts of the game, as well as projecting what we think they have ahead of them when they try to make the transition to the NFL. So with that said, let me get Mr. Boykin up here for us so that we can look at him. Share the screen. And good to go.
Yes, sir.
All right, let's do it. And we'll play the first one real time, and if it seems that's something that we need to do in half speed, you let me know based on the video quality that we got here.
Okay.
How's that looking? Is it jumpy, or do we?
It's jumpy on my side, but I can still make it out. I'm trying to focus in primarily on that, the quarterback and what he's doing. So it's good to see, his mechanics and how he moves around in the pocket.
All right, let's try one at half speed and see how that looks.
This actually looks pretty good.
Yeah, I like this better myself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Actually, I'm looking at it, and the first thing I would say is it's probably the number one thing you see with most college shotgun quarterbacks is that jump to set that they do, where it's just flip the hips, jump the feet to set, kind of have a statuesque quick stance, and then deliver the ball. It's the number one thing I think that quarterbacks in college have to get out of their repertoire when they get to the NFL. They need to get those feet moving, um, create separation, not just take a snap and turn and throw, but take a snap and gather and throw rather than turn and throw.
And explain to our audience why that's the case.
Well, because in the NFL that pocket is another 2 to 3 feet closer to you. And when those guys in your face, and if you're not 6'9", those arms come up and you start delivering these kind of, flick of the wrist throws. You notice how that defensive end for Minnesota, he's able to defeat the cut and he gets his arms up. But in the NFL, he's defeating that cut. He's getting his arms up, but he's only a foot and a half, 2 feet away from the quarterback.
Yeah,
So it
he's
really is important to gather so that if he has to step up, he can step up right into that window that's in between that defensive end and the defensive tackle and deliver the ball where it needs to go.
absolutely. And you notice a shorter quarterback like a Drew Brees, oftentimes they create windows for him with, half rolls or slight or drops where he's sliding to a side, even embedded into his drop to create that quick throwing lane. And he's still trying to drop for depth pretty quickly because obviously the further back you can get, you're not going to have that issue that you just described so well.
Yes, and the better throwing lanes that you have, and if you look at his placement on this ball, it's a great placement. It's a my guy or no guy ball. It allows that defender to catch that ball in a place that no defender has a chance to make a play on it. He's able to get out of bounds.
Yeah, and it's a good read of the situation. I mean, he's looking at he knows that he's facing a guy with an outside shade with a safety over top, also the linebacker well outside and the defensive back here. Or is that
Yeah,
actually that's the defensive end.
the
But
defensive
looking
end
at
and the outside linebacker removed from the box because they're in an empty set.
yep. And so when you look at that, you're looking at a zone, and Boykin's reading that that's a zone. He's likely going to have that cushion underneath here or on the outside, and that's a good first decision right away.
Definitely, and the timing of it is very important. And I don't want to lose sight of that. The timing is important because that linebacker is reading a proper read. He takes the necessary steps that he needs to take. If that ball comes out a half second late, that's a pick six. And so when you think about that and you think about the precision needed to run this offense, it really is impressive when you see him get the ball out of his hands. I just again would love to see more of a gather than a jump set because I think the jump set doesn't give you much options if you're getting heavy pressure immediately, like you'll see in the NFL from time to time.
Absolutely. And so here we are again. We're looking at more of a run-looking pistol set here, but we also have two outside receivers, I believe, on the left side. We got our single guy here, and it looks like that we have some sort of defensive back sugaring this outside area and coming with a blitz.
Yeah, definitely. And here you see they're in a TCU's in a 20 personnel. So two backs, no tight ends. You see that Boykin with a little pump fake is able to get that defensive back who's not used to rushing because as a defensive line coach, I would tell you you never want to jump at a quarterback like that. You want to put your arms up and run through him. But because he's a defensive back and he's not used to rushing, he tries to jump up and sky as high as he can to try to bat down the ball, which allows Boykin to then escape and use that ability that he has that a lot of other quarterbacks don't, which is to be able to make plays with his feet. So he's able to step up. He makes the decision to run and he turns into a runner. That the way he slides, he's going to have to work on that because in the NFL they'll just come and bang you in the head because when you start to run in the NFL, you're no longer protected. You become a runner, and those guys like to take shots.
Yeah. And one of the things I really like here too is that one of the mistakes sometimes that we see from a lot of pocket quarterbacks who, and I don't even want to say pocket quarterbacks who aren't very mobile are because obviously Boykin is playing from the pocket, but we're looking at a situation where I've seen guys like Brandon Whedon who kind of read this blind and they don't look for the defender drop into this area. They're just anticipating that the open receiver is going to be there and they'll blindly throw it in that direction. And I've seen him make that mistake even repeatedly as a pro. And to see, Boykin, even though he's got to deal with this first obstacle, he flashes as if, okay, I'm prepared to throw if I need to in this case. And I bring the ball back, but I'm surveying the situation. I've got the man in front of me here leaping that I'm not going to be able to get the ball over. And even if I try, is this really a good spot for me to try and throw the ball here? and it's a nice job reducing the shoulder so that you can get downfield. I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm with you.
Again, this is another 20 personnel. The only thing is a split back. And for people who still haven't figured it out, a lot of what the shotgun and these quote unquote spread offenses do is it takes traditional formations and just puts the quarterback in the shotgun in it. That's nothing more than a split back. They've been running it for years. They've been
Yep.
running it for years. It's a split back. The only difference is now you get this
Yep.
read option action, but really this is a quarterback power. If you
Yep.
look at the way in which it's being run, that tackle pulling, the only thing that this quarterback is doing is he's looking for the read. That linebacker takes off towards the running back. That lets the quarterback know that he should keep the ball. And if you don't think that there is an inherent advantage to quarterbacks who have to read on everything, including run plays, then you obviously don't understand how intricate the game of football is. I think that quarterbacks who have that read option element in their offense actually have an easier time picking up reads at the next level because they've always had to read.
Yep. If our only issue, I think, is that if we had coaches and and more importantly, general managers and owners who understood the same thing and said, you know what, maybe we have the patience timeline factor upped by, oh, let's double it from 2 years to 4 years. We might actually get some guys who do some things we really haven't seen at the level that at this, at the level that they're capable of. We would have guys who develop into complete players in a way that could be really a lot of fun to watch. I almost think that they're doing the league a disservice in their impatience to try and get guys on the field that they spend all this money on in a couple of years.
Well, take into account this play and what Boykin has to do. If you rewind it really quick, to the beginning, pre-snap, he's looking at that defensive end. He knows that play side defensive end at the top of the screen, he's going to be unblocked. That is a design of the play. He's going to make a read off of that defensive end as to whether or not he should hand it to the running back. But also with it is the read of this linebacker, this middle linebacker. If the middle linebacker vacates now, it's automatically a pull for the quarterback. This is very similar to if there was a pass play and you had a curl flat defender, and if the curl flat defender vacated, you would then throw the slant. If the curl flat defender stayed, then you would throw the flat. So you have that same concept as a pass, only we're putting it into the run by reading the second level defender on by the quarterback.
Very nicely explained.
Now, it would have been great if his offensive lineman would have actually blocked that linebacker, because this may have been a 79-yard run for Boykin if he had done so. If you notice, that offensive lineman doesn't do his job and actually block that linebacker, which he should because he's right in his face, Boykin could still be running right now. He could be running past us right now.
Yep. Because he could have dipped it a little further outside.
Exactly. That offensive lineman would have destroyed that linebacker based strictly on leverage. The linebacker was already moving to his left, the offensive lineman's right. So that would have been a great block for him.
Yep.
But I always tell people, you got to look at these things. Just because it's a run play and doesn't mean that it's any less intricate than a pass play, and that the quarterback doesn't have just as much responsibility in that mode.
Absolutely. And I
We've
think
got
that's
we've
a
got
really well explained way of looking at it.
Now we've got quads, a motion to quads on the wide side of the field. They keep two linebackers in the box, so there's still, you still got a 6-man box. This is a preferred, if you're looking at it from a read option standpoint. This is the type of offense that you probably want to take advantage of a one-on-one up top.
Yep.
And you could also, if those linebackers get out of their lanes, they may be a great lane for the quarterback to run. and pick up a first down that way.
And of course, he reads that one-on-one with with this defender playing off coverage and inside shade, and
And
that's on time.
the good thing about slower motion is you can actually see when the quarterback has made the decision.
Yes.
When when the ball comes up, he opens up to that side. His eyes are locked on. He's reading. People may think he's looking at the wide receiver, but in essence, he's probably looking more at the defensive back and seeing where that defensive back is because he wants to know where he's going to throw the ball to, not necessarily where the wide receiver is. And because him and the wide receiver have a good relationship, that wide receiver already knows what he's thinking. That ball comes out, it's to the wide receiver. It doesn't even matter that the quarterback was kind of sitting on this route. He knew where he was going to put the ball. You have a slow back pedal by the cornerback. He actually drives on the ball very well. And if the wide receiver doesn't keep coming, then that could have been a pick. But Boykin had confidence in his wide receiver. He had confidence in his throw. He puts the ball right into the body, but out in front of him so he could catch it with his hands, and the wide receiver does the rest.
Yeah, and I like that. You mentioned the defensive back because you can, when you think of it in the terms of the way you described, you can see where he starts looking at the defensive back to the receiver to the spot where he's throwing.
That's a good drive off that front leg. He steps into it.
Look at one more time there.
See a, see a little bit more, a little gather, but still a lot of jump in that throw. Um, and probably if he doesn't have that jump, if it's just a one step gather throw, he probably gets that ball off just a half, a tenth of a second, half of a second sooner. Um, so maybe the wide receiver could possibly break a tackle and continue to run, especially in a one-on-one situation. But again, I believe that that's the type of stuff that comes in time as he continues to make football his career rather than just a part of what he does because he's a student athlete.
For sure.
Doubles here. Looks like we've got a double crossing route with some comebacks on the outside.
And you get a chance to see an opposite hash throw. It's a pretty
Yeah,
ball.
he drives it. He drives it to him. He puts it in a place where his guy can get his hands on the ball. The and this is a great game because Minnesota played TCU very tough, and you can see early on his accuracy is right on the money. There's a
Yeah,
reason why he completed 70+% of his passes last year is because that accuracy is phenomenal, and I think a lot of times that's lost in when you're looking at these types of quarterbacks as well. The quarterbacks that come from these systems is those accuracy numbers aren't flukes. There's, I
no,
mean, there are people out here playing. It's just that they tend to see those windows better than others.
yeah. And look at the way that he opens up his shoulders and chest to whip that ball around with his upper body.
If he steps to his throw, the shoulder's there. He drives off that front foot. He delivers a ball that if it's wobbly, if it gets caught up in the air, that could be a pick. And those when you see someone throw into a tight window like that, you think about the NFL because in the NFL, that's what you'll have to do. You'll have to throw into those tight windows.
Yep. It's a very nice throw. Very nice throw. All right, so now we're going to get both linebackers blitzing. And that was a patient throw, too.
Patient throw. He sees the blitz. He knows where his read is, and he's just waiting for that X receiver to come underneath. He lets him get into the window before he delivers it, or he delivers it into the window and lets him run into it. We can see that when we look at it again, exactly when he throws the ball. You see, he's throwing the ball before he's actually cleared number 20, who actually stops off for a zone blitz. to try to spy to make sure that he can't run. And in reality, he's able to take advantage of that lack of aggressiveness from Minnesota and delivers a ball right there in that nice soft cushiony open.
Yeah, and you can see how he reacts to wanting to play that gap control to the outside to cut off Boykin, because when Boykin actually gets set to throw, his feet, he jumps that little bit, but because the jump is to that left side, watch 20 kind of like move his
Yeah, he
hips.
hitches back. Yeah,
Yep,
he's making sure he doesn't get beat outside. You can tell that someone's drilled that into his head. Hey, do not get beat outside.
yep,
And so it's interesting to watch him. It's a great point by you. Um, he throws a little bit off the back foot. I'd like to see him step into that throw because he actually gets really good protection from his line right here.
yeah.
That's a great pocket in the NFL. Even though a guy's breaking through, that's a successful pocket in the NFL, and it would be good to see him, take that step. You see how he kind of like
Hmm.
drives off that, doesn't really drive off the front foot. He just kind of whips it off the back foot. That left leg's not even planted into the ground.
Yeah, it's kind of that. This move is what I would call it is the Carson Palmer. I wish I did this when Chemo Van Oelhoffen came down low.
Exactly.
I might have
Exactly.
it might have had a different 6 to 7 years.
Oh, they may have won the Super Bowl that year, but I digress.
Yes. So, and so you look at this and say, am I saying that, that Trevone Boykin's scared? No, I'm just saying when you are used to having a hammer slam down on your hand, which occasionally happens when you are a quarterback,
Hmm.
you,
You
when
tend to
you,
pull the hand out a little bit faster.
yes, you do. When you hear that window creaking.
Exactly. Exactly. But it's still it's in a place that allows the wide receiver to run after the catch. And that's what you're asking for. You're asking your quarterback to make long handoffs. Give these guys, these athletes, a chance to run with the ball.
Yep. Distribute, distribute, distribute. We got another 2x2. And I
And
actually like this throw, even though it doesn't, it's not, it on, on first glance, it doesn't look accurate because the result isn't an accurate completion. But again, he's a little off his
mhm.
back foot, like you said. He does open up the chest so that he can generate some velocity, but still with, I think, some decent arc on that ball so it drops down. Because I want to look at what Mr. Doxson's doing here, if we can, and how he plays the ball.
I think it's worth noting that he's giving his guy an opportunity.
Yes.
That's my guy. I'm gonna give my guy a chance to go up and make a play for him. Would I have liked to see him, you know, explore the throwing the ball to this slot receiver on the skinny post here? Whizzing it right by this linebacker's ear. Yes. Do I fault him for going to his best receiver? Never, because as a receiver, and a guy who at one point in time was the go-to guy, when I came back and said, "Hey, listen, I've got a one-on-one matchup. You need to throw me the ball." I expected the quarterback to throw the ball, and so when you've got a guy and you've got a guy as talented as this guy is, you give him an opportunity to go get the ball.
Yeah. And I would almost say, I don't want to say they weren't on the same page in a sense because this is a difficult one to be, but you can see where Doxson kind of turns around and waits right here,
Uh huh.
and he's looking back to the ball in a way where he's still kind of like setting up. This is going to be behind me, and it turns out that because he's expecting the ball to come behind him, and maybe he's going to turn inside out towards the ball's actually placed in a way that's he could have continued to run under this ball. And I think that adjustment he made earlier, on whether it's because he expected it that way or Doxson threw it differently than what they talked about, or I mean, Boykin, either one of them wasn't on the same page with the other with this particular adjustment based on
Hmm.
what the coverage looked like. But again, it's a I actually like you said, he gave him a chance to make a play on the ball, and Doxson had to make a choice here. And as he's reading it, he just didn't. I don't think the receiver quite read it the right way, even though the ball seems like it's a little far out of bounds.
Hmm.
And maybe he wouldn't have gotten it even going a little bit further. I think he kind of turned back and waited on the ball a little too soon based on how the throw was. But you could also easily say that maybe the throw didn't match what they generally do.
Well, yeah, definitely. I think you could say it was a my guy, no guy ball,
Yeah,
and leave it there. One thing I also like about what quarterbacks from offenses that include a lot of run reads are is they do a great job with play action. As we watch, Boykin run and use his legs to get out of trouble again. He sees an opening in the pocket. They've got a spy there for him, but if you don't have a Luke Kuechly, like good luck spying on Trevone Boykin, you
yeah,
know. And so he's able to fake that guy out and pick up a first down on his own. That's a great job. But I think if you look at it, those things are key for me. Another empty set. They have the faux screen setup. I like to call it. It's a faux screen because you can tell that Boykin has no interest whatsoever in throwing this screen. Because if he did, he would throw it right now because he's wide open. That's clearly done so that
it
it's
sucks
clearly
in the
done so that
defense.
it
Yeah,
sucks the defense in.
and there's even a little bit of a partial roll to the right, like as if this might be a little bit of a sprint out almost.
Oh no, no. See, if you really look at it, this guy's ineligible. He's an ineligible wide receiver. He's an
Yes,
offensive lineman set up
yes,
by. Okay, so he's coming back and giving the fake, but this is a pass play all the way.
yeah,
And again, I look at the footwork. The footwork. This is where he gets in trouble because this ball should be completed to where his tight end's still running. He
yeah,
sees it. It's a great read. But because he throws it off that back foot and doesn't really step into the throw, he just tries to use, upper body. He doesn't get as much on it. I call it the Vince Young syndrome. Vince Young, who uber talented in every way, sometimes relied a little bit too much on that talent and that arm strength, and didn't always use the best technique. Um, and I think that type of thing right here got him in trouble, where this should have been possibly a completion for a touchdown. You don't get that.
yeah. And again, there's that flash of the nose tackle here, of the defensive tackle. Actually, it's yeah, of the defensive tackle
Yeah.
in that area. I mean, that's in the
Hmm.
periphery. When you see that flash of maroon and yellow, it would be hard to argue that he didn't react to that a little bit.
Yeah, and especially by his legs with his head down. That guy
Yeah.
has his head down, and he's probably thinking, "Oh, protect the money makers. Protect these legs, and make sure I'm good to play another play." But definitely, that's a completion that he left on the board.
Yes.
This is a more heavier set. You've got a tight end with the fullback to the right. They come back with a screen to the left. You can see how quickly he gets the ball out of his hands, especially because he's a right-handed quarterback, so he's actually stepping into his wheelhouse. Notice how he actually gathers because of the fact that he's a right-handed guy going to the left. It allows him to gather a lot quicker.
Yeah.
And so now he's throwing in, and that little fade off is a product of, it's like a baseball follow through,
Yeah.
almost, and you can see it. The ball gets there quickly. The wide receiver is able to quickly make a move after the catch. That's all you can ask for from these types of throws. I always hate when you see these throws and it's thrown behind the wide receiver, and now he's got to reach back, and he can't just get a full head of steam immediately. That's always
Yeah,
an annoying thing.
this is definitely well placed.
Trips up top, shoulder roll. So here we have a screen set up, and um, this close to field goal range, you don't necessarily want to take a sack on a third down. So I would probably mark this as a minus for him. Um, I would argue that he should have just thrown this into the ground, net at the feet of the running back, and sent out his kicking unit to try a deep field goal. You can tell they were setting up a double. He gives him the shoulder roll to the wide side and tries to come back to the running back screen to the short side. Number 20 does a great job of reading it. He runs with the back. There's nothing you can do there. They've got you. They've got you. Bottled in. It's probably best to just take the L, throw the ball away, and get your kicking unit out there.
Yeah. And to me, like, I get why he didn't throw it towards the feet of 20 right here, because I mean, he sees the flash of the guys in front of him,
Mm-hmm.
and he's brings up, he's like, where am I going to throw this down where I don't screw it up by accident? But
Uh-huh.
then, right,
When he steps up,
yeah, it's
get
time.
rid of it. Get
Yeah,
rid of it.
yeah. Maybe
You know.
you're gonna take a hit anyway. You might as well throw the ball away.
And I can tell you why he didn't. I mean, it's a very simple reason why he didn't. It's because he's Trevone Boykin. I
Yep,
mean,
exactly.
if he was some
If you're that
lesser,
quick, you're gonna think the same thing.
there's a reason why people think he's like he could be a phenomenal wide receiver in the NFL because he is that athletically gifted.
Yeah,
But you just sometimes you have to know when you're beat.
yeah. And the hero syndrome. The hero syndrome is a very common thing for, I think, every go-to player in college football. If you don't have that, you probably aren't any good in the
You
first
probably are not
place.
a go-to player. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, and it does. That's a maturity point that just takes time. You got to have some balance with it, but you always want an aggressive, I believe we can do this type of player.
Now, see, here is an example of a great drop and gather on this play right here. If you look at his footwork, he catches it, step, gather together. He sees it as soon as that curl flat defender runs to that swing. He laces it in there, and this guy has an opportunity to run after the catch because of that half second he saves, or that tenth of a second he saves, and he gets that ball and allows this guy to run after the catch. This is essentially the same play that we saw earlier, where the guy was able to make a play on him right as he was catching the ball. This time he's not as lucky. Touchdown TCU.
Yep, very well done. So we're gonna get to see it from this angle, I think.
Uh, you see there? 1, 2, 3, gather. The feet are active. He steps into it, drives off that front foot. Wide receiver catches it in stride. There's nothing else. There's nothing else to see. He's got a linebacker that's going to flash. If he waits, number 50 has an opportunity to flash into that window where the opening is. But because he gets that ball out when he does, it allows him to make that play.
And the feet are very decisive here. I mean, I really, I like, if you watch it from the original angle, and if you watched in full time and at full speed, you probably wouldn't notice really how precise the feet are in this, being on the toes. It would look a little more nervous looking or a little bit more jittery when it's not.
Well, that's what they used to say about Peyton Manning's footwork because he had that constant movement. And if you remember young Peyton Manning, it was a lot of it
Yes.
looked like he was doing a lot of shuffling. But what people didn't understand is that allowed him to be able to snap and turn in a heartbeat because he relied so much on his timing and accuracy rather than his arm strength. And so
Yes.
I think sometimes these quarterbacks that are blessed with you know, A level arm strength. They don't see things the way Peyton Manning does. So
Yeah.
that's
And
that's a product of it.
absolutely, and it's a way of almost articulating time. I look at it as like a drummer who plays a ride cymbal is is breaking down time, the rhythm of the play, of the rhythm of the song, in a way where he is breaking it down into eighths or 16th notes or 32nd notes, and in a way, I think a quarterback with his feet, it, oftentimes when they're doing this, it's in a way of they're kind of breaking down. That's their ride cymbal. They're kind of breaking down the time in a way where that they're in enough control and in position to be able to keep that time in a manner of beats where that they can throw it um, in rhythm of the play.
Definitely.
Interesting play.
Very interesting play. You actually see him go through his progression. Read one's not there. He comes off. Read one's taken away. He pumps and snaps to read number two. He's not comfortable there because that guy's sitting in the flat. He runs, but not running, looking to run, but looking to throw someone open. And I don't believe this ball is actually intended for number nine.
I don't either. I
I
was
think he's
expecting,
looking touchdown right there.
yes, this was a stolen pass.
Yes, definitely, and I believe a stolen touchdown, and maybe could have helped to make this a blowout rather than a really tough match like they had with Minnesota.
Yeah,
Um, in first glance, you just say, oh well, he was able to make a good job to escape and then get the ball to an open receiver. But when you look at it in this halftime, you can really see like I don't think he's looking at number nine at all.
no.
I think he's looking at that flat defender and saying, I've got him beat. Maybe if the throw has a little bit more arc on it, number nine doesn't think it's for him. But I mean, looking at the way nine went up and got it, you can't really be you
Yeah,
can't really be mad at him. He sees the ball, he gets the ball. So
yeah, no quarterback. I don't care if it's Peyton Manning or anybody. Peyton Manning may be going to back in the day with Demarius Thomas and Eric Decker and all of them and going, look, when you run this route, do you want me to put a little arc on it here, or do you want it at this shoulder, or do you want it at that, and being that kind of specific, and they work that out. But
mhm.
Peyton Manning isn't as specific where he's going, if the play breaks down and I'm sliding to the right side and you're improvising this route,
Yeah,
how do
exactly.
you want me to place the ball on this improvised section of the route? That's not exactly happening here because again, that's a part that isn't planned. So he knows that this is an improvised concept, so you understand the concept and they're connected there, but you're not, he's not going, yeah, well, I'm going to loft it here. And this is a very nice play. This is a play that you'd see Jameis Winston make on a
Mhm.
fairly routine basis when he breaks the pocket to his right at Florida State with his running back.
You've actually also seen Johnny Manziel make this very same type of throw,
Yes.
where he comes off his feet, and many people look at it and go, "Oh, that's an undisciplined throw." But if you look at the way in which the throw happens, it's actually by leaving his feet, he's able to turn his hips and get that type of whip that you want when you're trying to flick the ball out there and get it to a receiver. So
Yep, and I remember a young player from Purdue who didn't have enough arm strength, and everyone said that he was going to have to overcompensate and do some crazy things to make it in the league. And he still seemed now I when I hear analysts talk about him, they talk about how technically proficient he is.
yes. And I'm trying to figure out where the lack of arm strength is. Did it happen when he messed his shoulder up? Did it actually heal and he became a stronger thrower? I don't.
I think it was Oscar Goldman, and saying that they could rebuild him and they could make him stronger. Maybe they took it out of Bigfoot and like and they found that Bigfoot robot from the $6 million man and put some of those parts into Drew Brees' shoulder.
I believe so. I mean, I think it's hilarious when they're like, oh, he can't, he doesn't have the arm strength. Oh, okay, well,
Yeah, all right.
100 million yards later, he's still whipping it around pretty well.
Yeah, and
So
Miami's.
here,
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, here we're looking at him, another empty set, a good drop. You see a legitimate drop and gather. He's throwing the ball deep. You see him load up on that arm, and he's just the way that ball comes out, what he's looking at. You can tell that somebody didn't do what he thought they were going to do.
Yep.
Probably that outside receiver whom he believed should have checked to a nine does a comeback, but you can see the time. It's funny, even though he runs the wrong route, you can see the timing of when he lets the ball go.
Yep.
Because when the wide receiver comes in the frame right there, he's just coming out of his break, which means that if they were on the same page, Boykin would have thrown that ball before he ever came out of his break.
Yes.
So even in times where they don't link up, you can still see the thought process of the quarterback
Yeah.
and what he's thinking as far as the timing and getting that ball out of his hand.
And again, talking about touch, the way that he angles his body upward like this is something that I used to see Rich Gannon work on a lot late in his career about on throwing a vertical throw. And Rich Gannon was a good vertical passer as a guy who had a quote weak arm. He threw with very good anticipation, and he could give you a nice throw between 30 and 35 yards downfield consistently, and that's all you need.
Mm-hmm. No, I definitely agree. It's funny. You look at it right there. It almost seems as if he was going to pull it down and run, and then he went, "Wait a minute. Let me just hold up and see what I can find first." I
Yeah.
mean, obviously, supremely talented, supremely gifted people do this. He whips it off, and I mean, it's a my guy or no guy ball. Um, in a scramble situation, are you looking for the most accurate throw? I've seen Aaron Rodgers do this a million times.
Mm-hmm.
This I call this an Aaron Rodgers special. When
Yep.
he takes that step up the field like he's going to run, and then he just works to his left, and he may tell a guy go left, go right, and then he whips a laser over there to someone, and all of a sudden it's a 40, 50 yard completion for a touchdown.
Yeah.
But my guy, no guy ball, live to fight another day. I'm selfish. I would have told him, hey man, just go ahead and run that. The way everybody spread out on it, there was an opportunity to catch a lane, and if you're able to catch a lane, but I think that Minnesota was doing a very good job this game of keeping guys in to spy him and bringing that spy from multiple positions so that he didn't always know where the spy was, and
And
so that could play a role in why he decided to pull up when he began to run in the first place.
yeah, and this is just first quarter of the game. But looking at this, from a bigger picture perspective, I do like the blend of aggressiveness that he shows with intelligence and balanced maturity about the types of risks that he takes. And this is a good example of that. I mean, you described it as you're describing it in great detail. It's a my ball, it's a, my guy or no guy throw. And that's, but it's also, I'm going to go for the jugular.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of me trying to take this off and getting 20, 30 yards, maybe if I do this, wait a minute, this is let me use my legs to my advantage to try and trick the defense a little bit. And it's I mean, all his throws I look at, even the ones that are, whether the receiver is not on the same page, they're all the types of throws that you can picture a very good pitch to catch if the connection worked out in terms of the mindset between the quarterback and the receiver being on the same page.
Here's a designed run, load option or speed option. Does a good job. There's a quarterback draw here. Like I said, I think Minnesota did a good job all game of really trying to limit his ability to beat them solely with his legs. And I believe at the end of this game, he still had close to 100 yards rushing.
Yeah.
So I don't know how. I mean, definitely did a good job of limiting him, but it's hard to completely stop him.
No.
And again, right here, you see it, and it's very evident with the throws to the left. It could be because of the way his feet are set up that he just does a really good job of gathering and throwing when it's to the left side. Um, Again, it's in a right-hander's wheelhouse to throw to the left, but he sees it right now. He gets it in the hands of his guy. He gets it to the shortest throw, allows him the opportunity to try to pick up that first down. That's a ball that when you're a quarterback, that's a ball that you're happy about, and then you're sad because wide receivers are screwing up your completion percentage. Ask Cam Newton and Jameis Winston how much drops hurt, and I'm sure they both can attest. I believe, in you're a Browns fan, I believe Braylon Edwards probably cost a couple Browns quarterbacks their jobs with all the drops he had in Cleveland.
Absolutely.
So
I was on hiatus during that time. I was a Titans fan during that time. But I can also say that Justin McCarron's and Drew Bennett and, I don't know, Ed, and then all the other receivers that they tried to give Steve McNair when
oh
they
my
didn't
gosh.
pick Randy Moss and took Kevin Dyson. I still look at that era and think to myself, imagine Steve McNair with Randy Moss. It would be a much different career for Steve McNair and the Tennessee Titans.
You know, and it's funny, it's a much different career than the borderline Hall of Fame career he already had.
Yeah, yeah, he's my
which
all
is
time.
which is awesome.
Yeah, he's my all time favorite player. I mean, and I remember watching those games and thinking to myself every time I watched a game and him throw a deep ball that Justin McCarron's came down with one out of every, three, one out of every four, thinking, yeah, I know you tried Carl Pickens at the end of his career. I know you tried Yancey Thigpen, but yeah,
Randy Moss would have looked really nice.
yes. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, I think you can go to YouTube and probably watch Steve McNair on the first play of the Pro Bowl in his MVP season,
Randy Moss.
launching a ball to Chad Johnson,
To
actually,
Chad
on the
Johnson.
first
Okay.
play of the game and for a touchdown, and go, see what I'm saying? Just see what I'm saying. Derek Mason I loved, but Derek Mason was not that kind of deep threat.
All right. So and you see it again right here. What we've been talking about, that when that color flashed in front of him, and he just had that little hit. You see how he throws
Yes.
that drive leg back. He doesn't really launch it. Step into it. It's funny because it's one of the things that I absolutely love about Jameis Winston. Like, Jameis Winston does not care.
Right.
He just stands in there, and if he's going to get whacked, he'll just take a shot. But Jameis Winston's also a guy who has played quarterback his entire life. and just that's the position that he was always bred to play. Whereas Boykin has done some transitioning, so maybe that's a part of it. Um,
And can
still
that be?
delivers a great throw. Still
Yeah,
delivers a great throw, but we're looking at this from the next level perspective.
yeah. Can he get this worked out of him? That's the question that you ask is, can he unlearn it at this stage? Because yes, he's rather new, so maybe yes he can.
Hmm.
Then the other side of the argument is, well, he's already doing it this at this stage of the game, and it's going to get a little more complex and a little faster and a little tougher.
Hmm.
Will will he really be able to unlearn this and stand in there when it gets even tougher?
Or will he want to? Or
Yes.
will he want to?
Yes.
That's one of the things about supremely gifted athletes. It's not that they don't that they can't stay in the pocket. It's that sometimes they go, well, I can stay in the pocket, or I can go and take off and run and make some yards and make some do a positive thing. So while I think that he does a great job, that was a great job. He stood in under pressure and delivered a good ball, but you can see the feet,
Yeah.
and you always want to be aware of that.
He even does it with this one.
Mhm. It's a recurring theme. I like the steps there. I like the drop. He right there. He steps into that a little bit better, but he's also you can see him. Oh my gosh, what a throw!
Yeah.
If he's making throws like that while kind of fading back,
Yeah.
I mean that's just I don't know who questions his arm talent, but I really want to have their head checked because I mean this is a what a 45-yard ball.
Yeah. Nearly 50 from the throwing point.
Yep. I mean, and it's put right on the receiver's hands,
Yeah.
and I mean it just doesn't get any better than that. He does a great job on the fake. That's actually what allowed him the time to get that ball off. And then he, like you talked about earlier, that kind of whip action to get that touch on the ball when you're throwing it out deep that you were talking about.
Yeah. You see the chest come, the chest forward
Hmm.
and just whipping through.
That looked a lot like a Robert Griffin throw.
Yep.
They
Yeah.
had a lot of Robert Griffin on that right there. It's. I mean, someone probably should check Robert Griffin's birth certificate and realize that this dude's still only like in mid 20s.
Look,
Maybe you don't want to give up on him just yet.
I think we just need to stop checking birth certificates all in all, but
Oh gosh.
yeah. All right. Let's look at this one more time. And this looks like the receivers were kind of not in the right places because it
Hmm.
looks like they're breaking into each other a little bit.
Yeah, they're definitely the spacing on this is thrown off. I don't know if it was thrown off by contact and maybe one guy didn't get as deep as he should, or one guy got too deep. Under the guy underneath got too deep, but he's definitely, this is giving one DB an opportunity to make a play on two receivers, and so there's definitely some depth issues.
Do you think he threw it away?
I mean, it's hard to tell. I'd like to think that he was probably trying to make the lesser of two evils there.
Yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily say he was trying to throw it away, and if he was, then he needs to do a better job of throwing it away. He needs to put that a little bit higher, and
Yeah.
nobody can get a hold of it. So
Yeah. Very nice. I really do like what I see from the short range in the middle of the field.
hmm
He's got this down fairly well.
and if you notice, this is what right out of the gate Marcus Mariota has done phenomenally in the NFL. He's taken to that short game very well. Um,
Yes.
and that is I think that is a great testament to these styles of offenses, that they come in with that West Coast feel, to them, and they're able to quickly make those quick reads, those one read, two read throws, to that shorter intermediate receiver, and allows them to go make plays, because that's what they've been doing for 2, 3, 4 years in college.
Excellent point. Nice, decent patience there.
Yeah, and I emphasize again that that's a read play. Like, there is something that's telling him, hold on to this ball. It's not just the fact that he's going to pull this. There is an option here. He sees this defensive end. That defensive end is going to make a step up the field, and when he does, that quarterback knows he's going to pull it, because there's no way that guy can make that play. That takes talent, and that takes just as much ability to read as standing in the pocket and looking at defensive backs does.
Yeah.
This is one I think he'd like to have back. Look at his footwork on this. Look at the difference. He hops, bounce, 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 and then his feet. There's never really a set there. He throws it out, and someone's able to, read his eyes and come underneath it.
Watch this right foot. It never fully comes back. Like right about here, it kind of, it's like
he's hopping back.
Yeah, and he's never in good position.
Yeah, he's lucky.
Yeah,
because it should have been a pick. But if you look at the way in which the defensive back was playing, this has every opportunity to be a touchdown, and he knows it. He knows it. He can't get it back.
No Malcolm Butler cutting across here on this play. Just the guy at the line of scrimmage or the shallow flat.
You see he's going to that slant route. He's got the defender on his back.
Yeah.
There's an opportunity for a touchdown there. He just doesn't make it happen.
He obviously reads this. But
now there I would say this is a handoff, because in the position that defender was in, he can't make a play on that running back.
Yep.
So I would actually categorize this as a bad read.
Yep.
If you look at the momentum, look at where the quarterback, the defensive end is, his initial angle was towards the quarterback. He tries to adjust very slightly to take on this running back, but as you can notice, the running back is actually losing ground, which is going to allow him to get by that defensive end. And once he does, it's 2 for 2 out there as far as blocking. So I think that there's a chance that he may have made a wrong read on this one. I probably would give him a minus.
Yeah.
So here, again, he's patient, waiting for the play to develop. He delivers a great ball
in the face of pressure.
Yeah, step, gather. He sees that pressure. You see how he gives that. It's the same thing, and I know we've mentioned it, but this is what an evaluator is going to do. He's going to notice that little bit of
Yep.
He pulls and withdraws back from it. I can't blame him. I don't want to get hit in the pocket either. You can see that it actually takes something off of his throw.
Yep.
But he gets the ball to the receiver.
Yep. There's a little bit of a Blaine Gabbert type of thing that people would get mad about Blaine Gabbert with this type of situation too. And it got, I would say, it was a little overblown to some extent, but it is something that you're going to be noting.
Yeah. And it's what it would say is he's seeing shadows. He hears footsteps. I think the problem with Blaine Gabbert was that he would mix in that with the fact that he wasn't always the best reader of a defense.
No,
So,
he
you
wasn't,
know,
and he was flash fried. They dipped him in
oh my
that
gosh,
oil
they
so fast that
they
it
put him
was,
out there way fast. I hope they don't. I hope they're not doing the same thing with Blake Bortles. 'Cause,
yeah,
man, Blake Bortles looks good sometimes, and then he looks awful sometimes. Wow.
yep, yep.
Then Boykin comes back and makes throws like this, where it's just you know perfect positioning. Look at his feet, great job, and he look at the body. That's a great drive on that ball. He puts it right on the money. You got no choice but to catch that ball.
Yeah, it's a beautiful play.
You can see it here from the pocket. He looks the way the linebackers open up the lane. Number 50 opens up the lane and he delivers the ball right inside.
Nice.
Yeah, it's just a great ball.
Hmm.
I tell you, he wants the full deck. He doesn't want to drop it off to this running back. He wants to because
Yeah.
I'm looking and I'm thinking to myself, oh, he's going to drop it off to the running back, and then all of a sudden he whips it out there to a wide receiver. Um, great, great throw in the face of pressure.
I'll say this. This is one of those plays that I could see people arguing about in a draft room.
Hmm.
Like where they go, I love that he could do it.
I
I
just don't
don't
want him
like that
to.
he decided to do it.
I love that he can do it. I just don't want him to. I want him to
This
drop it off to this running back
yeah, this is that
and live the fight another day.
this is the Brett Favre, Mike Holmgren, Steve Mariucci going right here. No, no, no,
Don't do it. Don't
no,
do it. Don't.
no,
Okay.
no.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
Awesome. Wow. And,
Yeah,
and when you look at it, you go, man, that was a lot of work for a 3 yard play.
exactly. Exactly. When you give it to this guy right here, and he probably gets you at least the same amount.
Yep. And there's no threat of interception or
Yeah,
or anything like that.
yeah, exactly.
But again, those are the type of things that I mean, he's a playmaker for a reason.
And you have to live with that to an extent, and you
Hmm.
also have to. Those are the plays that you say, "Hey, look, Trevone Boykin, look, Johnny Manziel, look, Brett Favre, look, Tyrod Taylor." That's over time, and I'm sure
Hmm.
Tyrod's been told this. It's like, look, some of these things you don't have to do. Preserve your body a little bit. We're going to need you in the fourth quarter. We're going to need you down the stretch of this season. You know, for a 3 yard gain where you're up 10-3, context is important. Let's learn some context of when to pull out the Superman cape and when to keep it in the back pocket. Wow.
I mean, at the end of the day, this is, I mean, it's what you love about him, right? I
Yeah.
mean, you can do that.
Oh, wrong play. All right. Let's keep going here. We go to that next one, and comes the run again.
Right, run
Nice play.
play all the way.
Yeah.
Run play all the way. He's you when you see him do that, it's crazy how how much. And I think that this is part of the reason why people get enamored with trying to make guys like him and why they were so hell bent on turning Braxton Miller into an average wide receiver, um, is because when you see them run with the ball, they're just so dynamic.
Yeah, yeah. But it's like, but here's the thing. I got to be honest with you. Like, I'm watching this and I'm thinking, when I say wow, I'm thinking wow because, like, okay, this was a nice move here, and this defender comes up wide and he's just untouched. He's quick
Mm-hmm.
enough, he's untouched. So when I watch it, I watch this in two contexts. When I'm thinking from college football fan enjoying the game, I go, wow, that's a great run. That's a nice play.
Mm-hmm.
When I put on the evaluator cap and I go, he has NFL caliber quickness. He has NFL caliber speed. He can move his hips nicely. He's reading the field like an NFL player against college players,
Mm-hmm.
And then I
Mm-hmm.
go, what did I see anything here where I'm totally enamored with him where I go, I have to make him a wide receiver. I have to like totally say, no, he's not a quarterback. He's a wide receiver because his athleticism is so much better than every wide receiver in the NFL or as good as the top 5 wide receivers in the NFL or top 15 wide receivers in the NFL that it would be insane not to put him there and tell him not to try and be a quarterback. And I look at that and I go, no, I don't see, I personally don't. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't see anything like that that says to me, oh yeah, he's up there with Odell Beckham in the open field. Maybe in future plays we will see some of that more. But I look at him and go, yeah, he could be an NFL wide receiver. But I'm looking at this and going, there's enough on tape of what he does as a thrower. Why would I want to waste that to have him be like you said? What with Braxton Miller? I look at Braxton Miller and go, okay, yeah, that's impressive, I guess, in college, but to me, it's doesn't seem more than maybe a little above average in the
Yeah, I
NFL.
mean, I I look at it this way. Why would you subject that type of athleticism to a he may get the ball when he
Yeah,
can have the ball in his hands every play?
yeah, exactly.
But this is every play. He could potentially do this every play. And it's the argument that I made with Braxton Miller. It's the argument that I've made with Terrell Pryor. It's the argument that I made with oh gosh, help me out. Quarterback from quarterback from North Carolina went
Oh,
to the
Curry,
Raiders.
Ronald Curry.
Yeah, Ronald Curry. Um, you just seen it over time, and it always works out to the same way. Even the quarterback from Washington that went to Dallas, that they 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 um they moved him immediately to wide receiver, never even gave him an opportunity as a quarterback.
Yeah,
And I was
Creighton.
going, I'm sorry.
Was it Patrick Creighton?
No,
No.
no, not Creighton. And his name will lose me, and it'll come back to me at some point
Yeah,
because I'll get annoyed by it. But these guys who were really talented and really special as quarterbacks in college, like just get you know thrown to, hey, go and play a position you've never played in the most competitive environment you can possibly play it against guys who've been playing their position their entire life.
yeah.
And now I expect you to be really good at it. It's like, well, Hines Ward did it. Well, yeah, Hines Ward was never really a quarterback.
No, man, he
I
was
mean,
a he was a listen. I was in school at Georgia when that was going on. He was a running back. He came here as a running back. He was a running back as a freshman.
hmm
They put him at wide receiver. Then their quarterbacks got hurt, and they put him at quarterback because they didn't have anything else, And he played quarterback. He played quarterback there, So but it was, I don't know. I mean, that was a different situation. That's definitely a different situation than all the ones you just described. But I mean, I like this throw here. I mean, people will talk about, being able to even just vary your arm I'd keep missing it. Keep varying, the release platform. You've got, got a little bit of a Dan Quisenberry submariner right here, a little
Oh
sidearm
yeah.
action,
And
and
that's important. You've got to be able to bend it around linemen sometimes. Those throwing lanes. They like they say you sometimes you have to invent your own throwing lane,
yeah,
and so that's important. I mean that makes him who he is. Isaiah Stanback, by the way,
I
is who I was
say a
thinking of.
stand back. Yes, I remember
So
now.
talented at Washington, and
Yes,
they
I
just they
do
just
remember
misused
that.
him as a wide receiver in Dallas, and I was like, man. And if you remember at the time, it wasn't like they were setting the world on fire with quarterbacks in Dallas at that time. So,
No, but Drew Henson.
oh yeah, of course, he definitely deserved. We've got quads up at the top. You're
Yeah,
looking at again. He pumps fakes, goes up top. Look at the ball he throws. I do not believe that it's a coincidence that these deep balls that they're throwing are going to the outside shoulder.
yeah.
Um, to where that guy comes back and he drops it in there on a dime. I mean, he drops it right in the bucket, and you've got to be impressed with that type of throw. Again, look at the
Opposite
you know
hash,
opposite hash. He launches
40
it,
yards. Yeah,
puts it right on a dime.
Aaron Rodgers does this.
Yeah, I mean, all the good ones do it, and it's always funny to me. Like it's not a these types of throws are not by chance. They're not just throw it up and let my wide receiver go beat a DB.
Yeah, anybody who says that definitely needs their head examined on this particular play
I mean,
because that's a
everything,
route. That's a route style of a cut and break right there too.
and you see how he actually gets his feet into great position to actually throw this ball. Because he fakes that, because he fakes the screen, you can see his feet. At the beginning, he's almost turned to the sideline, and afterwards, and if you take a look at it right here,
Yeah,
see there where his feet is right now, he has to reposition his entire body. See how he turns it? Now
yeah,
he's in position, plants off that left foot, drives through, puts the ball right where he wants to put it.
yeah. No, I think that's a beautiful, beautiful play.
Yeah, it's a great play. It's a great play. It's good awareness by the wide receiver to know that that's what's being accomplished. Obviously, they practice that, and he knows what to expect.
Now the question will be, did he catch the ball?
Well.
No, but you know what?
I was about to say for I mean,
Process was great.
the process was great, and at the end of the day, he's not throwing to that guy in the NFL.
Yeah, he's
He's
not.
throwing to an NFL caliber guy,
Yeah,
for certain.
yeah,
And that's the difference is
yeah.
when I'm
Marvin,
when I'm evaluating off more than just you know was the ball caught, because I
Marvin,
know that a
yeah.
lot of times those guys don't catch the ball for you. I mean, it's not
Marvin
your fault.
Jones and Robert Woods would probably make that catch, and neither of
Oh,
those guys
definitely.
are on the level of say Jordy Nelson or Odell Beckham or Nuke Hopkins, you
Yeah,
know, but they
yeah.
certainly are very good.
I tell you, man, the I love Hopkins to death, but you give some of these other wide receivers the 20 plus targets a game that he's getting up there. Oh my God. I know other wide receivers must look at his statistics and go, "Are you kidding me? He got the ball what? They
Yeah,
gave they gave him 28 targets in the game? Like, are you serious?"
well, you know,
The positioning of this ball is interesting. I don't know. I can't necessarily tell
yeah.
if it's on purpose or if it's a product of him running.
Again, another sidearm throw.
Yep, he's got pressure in his face. I mean, he throws it down. Like I said, I don't know if he was throwing it. I guess from the way that the defender is playing, I can't give him the benefit of the doubt and just say, well, he was throwing it down and away, because if he throws it up, it's not like the defender's going to pick it. So
Yeah.
I'm assuming that he just didn't get enough on it, because he was running, to his right, trying to throw right, which is always, you know,
And
um,
sidearm.
yeah, it's a difficult thing to do, especially when you have pressure coming.
He's trying to get it around the defender, and I just,
Hmm.
and I would agree with you. I think placement came second here, whereas I'm just trying to get the ball around this defender came first.
Hmm. I mean, and I have a friend that says all the time, "There's no pitchers in the box score," so he'll take that completion, but also there's no pitchers in the box score is the reason why drops look bad, because it makes your completion percentage go
Yep.
down. So
I
you
t-
take the good with the bad, I guess.
I've taken completion percentage completely out of my evaluations, to be perfectly honest.
You would have.
I count drops. I do count drops in my charting, but
Hmm.
I don't, and I count completions, and I count attempts, but I don't look at completion percentage. I don't put any value on that.
It's amazing to me how many people still do.
Yeah, yeah,
Like, why are you concerned with the completion percentage?
yeah.
You should be concerned with the throws.
Because Bill Parcells had some sort of formula he said on ESPN. I don't know. I mean, that's
I guess so.
I guess so.
No,
I
this
mean,
is one he'd want back. I'm assuming
yeah.
he want to get this throw back. See if we can see anything in his mechanics that may have thrown it off. Well, I mean,
It's a little out of
you know
rhythm.
what? It looks like it could be it, and it could be that the wide receiver did something that he wasn't expecting him to do.
Yeah,
Um, it's hard to tell, not being able to see the receiver's route through, but it seems that, I mean, I don't know why he stopped and then decided to turn and jump for the ball either. So
yeah.
I don't know any. I don't think that there's any 20 to 25-yard hitch routes. So
No, but I think it's interesting because, it's like he settled into a zone as opposed to continued to run.
yeah, maybe that was his thought process versus his own, and Boykin thought he was going to keep running. It
Because
was
he only
clearly a
leaves out
ball
one
he threw
safety.
into the end
Yeah,
zone. Yeah, I mean,
and so I tend to agree with you. I think it was the receiver and him not being on the same page in terms of what you do there, and it was more the receiver stopping when Boykin had the clear read that said, "Hey, we shoot this thing downfield and it's a touchdown."
hmm.
Now, if we were going to argue against this, then, and I'm going to try, I'm gonna defeat my own argument when I make it here. First, I'm going to make the argument, which is he's a little out of rhythm here. He has to kind of squat. He's kind of squatting down to climb. He hops, and it's kind of a little bit of a rushed rhythm throw compared to what we've seen him do.
Hmm.
Um, and and I would say, oh well, that might be why he's inaccurate. But I've seen him. I've seen him in terms of what he does. I don't think it's so out of rhythm because you see the feet come down, set. There's a quick
Hmm.
little gather step in here, and it all seems to come out fairly well and smooth. So I'm not. I don't believe that's the case. I'm more inclined that it would
Yeah,
be the other.
I don't think the follow through looks rushed. So if I was looking at it and say he's a little out of sorts, it's one of those where, yeah, he may have been out of sorts, but he knows how to get himself back into
Yes.
a balanced rhythm, because that follow through is pretty it's
Yeah.
pretty fluid.
And that's a very important point, I think, for quarterbacking overall that makes me look at Trevone Boykin, at least if this game projects to 3, 4, 5 games that I'll see by between
Hmm.
now and April, which is if this is what I'm seeing from him when he has to adjust and make a quick footwork adjustment and maybe a little off rhythm type of adjustment and get back into rhythm, he does it. Jacoby
Hmm.
Brissett does it extremely well.
He is
And
very good at it.
yeah, and to me, so to me, that's as important as anything. Is that when you're under pressure or you're making an adjustment, can you realign yourself in a way where you can make the play, or where you can deliver the ball, get back under control as fast as possible so that you can throw with accuracy. And I would say this was an accurate throw on a mixed up route.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, and to me that says poise. That to me is if you're able to make that adjustment, you're showing poise, and I like that. Even if he's got a little bit of those yips when it comes to the Kimo Van Oehoffen factor or your Vince Young syndrome. Because I don't think he had any yips on that one.
Yeah,
Though. It
no,
was
he
an
stood in there
interception.
on that one, but it's an interception. So I guess maybe he should have the yip. Maybe that yip is good for him. But no, I mean he stands in here on this one, and
Yeah,
and I don't know if like getting hit maybe you know
it's an
affected
ugly
the
ball.
throw.
Yeah, I think it is. I think he gets hit just from the backside right there, and watch
Hmm.
the ball. This is the only wobbly ball we have seen all game.
Yeah, that's just unfortunate right there. That
Yeah,
he doesn't get it off just a little bit sooner.
yeah. But that to
Comes from
me,
the Yeah, it comes from the blind side. I mean,
yeah, it's a bad result. But again, I look at the process and divorcing it from whether that's the right read or not, but focusing solely on the fact that we've looked at him have those little yips before, and he doesn't have it when he knows this is coming because he saw it.
yeah. And
I
it's funny because that's clearly like his third or fourth read. You can see his eyes start left,
Yep,
then come back right. So that's not his number one read. I guess if you wanted to nitpick, you could say he was throwing in the double coverage.
yep,
And would he have been better served to just check it down to this running back
yeah. Get what you can,
and get what you can get?
especially again, and this is again. These are the plays that separate great quarterbacks from either competent quarterbacks or
Hmm.
backups in the NFL, which is context of the play. 3rd and 8, up 14, 9:02 left in the game. Make it
In field goal range.
in field goal range. Make it a 20-3 ball game in the mid-third quarter. Don't make it potentially a 17-10 ball game in the middle
Hmm.
of the third quarter.
No, I agree. I agree on 100%. It's about understanding time and situation. And in this situation, I don't think that the result is what you want.
Yeah.
And so if you have to be a little bit more conservative here, then that's what you do. And you see Cam Newton do this a lot now.
Yes.
Whereas early on in his 5,000 or almost 5,000 yard days in his first two seasons, you would see him always go for the big, always go for the big. And now he's very diplomatic. He'll go three and out. He'll take that three and out and he'll say, "Hey, listen, I'm just not going to kill us." And as a result, interceptions have dramatically dropped, touchdowns have not, and,
Yep.
and that's a great thing.
And Peyton Manning did it too. So Peyton Manning had the same problem.
Hmm.
He tried to be a hero an awful lot.
Oh gosh. See, here's another one of those throws that I just go, why would you ever want this dude to play wide receiver?
Yeah.
Just, I mean, footwork there, sees it, lets it go right in. I mean, you've got no other choice but to catch that ball.
Yeah, and it's placed perfectly along that back shoulder, just enough because that safety's coming across.
That gives you enough time to be able to duck down or to do whatever you need
Yeah.
to do to try to absorb that hit.
And let me tell you something. I saw Jared Goff this weekend. I studied Jared Goff this weekend, and I know a lot of people are in love with Jared Goff, and I think that I can understand a lot of the reasons why. But one thing that Mr. Goff has an issue with is ball placement.
Yeah.
And he will kill his man before he oftentimes
I could I
yeah.
can tell you one group of people who are not on the Jared Goff bandwagon. It would be the people at football game plan.
I,
We are not on the Jared Goff bandwagon.
let me guess. And I tell you, one of the things that I see that's, when I look at that, I go, ball placement with him is an issue, and he will get his receivers killed. With this type of throw, he will lead his receiver right into that safety every time.
And what do you see in the greats? When was the last time you saw a receiver um catch a ball from Tom Brady and just get massacred?
Yeah,
Like you
exactly.
just don't see it because he gives those guys an opportunity to defend themselves. Troy Brown probably added another, you know, 6 years to his career because Tom Brady became the quarterback rather than, you know,
Yeah.
Drew Bledsoe because Drew Bledsoe would try to rifle anything in there. He didn't care how many people were around.
Yep. And let me tell
Oh, he
you,
was
the
passing.
last play I saw it, and I'm pushing this one, was Sunday with the Rob Gronkowski, and I would even say that I wouldn't even argue that one as he led Gronkowski into a bad situation, as that's the closest thing I've seen to it. You
Yeah,
know,
and even then, I mean that's a product of a defensive back not wanting to have anything to do with correctly hitting Rob Gronkowski. I think it's less to do with the throw
yep,
and more to do with who Rob Gronkowski is.
exactly, exactly,
I think he leaves one on the board right here.
yep. But
This
I
is a
like the
ball that
look.
I
He
think
looks off the safety well, and
mhm. Everything is good, and that ball is just a little bit long.
yeah, and you know, I don't know if this is true or not, but as I watch this, you get the sense that he's like, I'm trying to be delicate here
Mhm.
with that right there. There's a little bit like we'll watch it, and
Like he's trying to place it. Like
yeah,
I'm just trying to place it instead of just throwing the ball. Just throw
yeah,
the ball.
it's right after the you see it with the quarterback right after he throws the ball, like like watch the arm. Like it's like he froze it just before it completely followed through, and
You know, it's like a golfer trying to shape a
yes,
shot.
yes,
That's exactly what it's like. It's like a golfer trying to shape a shot, and sometimes they don't swing the club head all the way through. I think it's the same way when you look at that delivery. It's I'm trying to get it to do a specific thing, and so I'm just going to let it. I'm going to let that arm stay up there for a little bit instead of bringing it all the way down, all the way through.
absolutely. And even let's look at
Yeah,
the placement on that one because
I mean,
it's a little
if he
behind him.
doesn't do that, is that safety looking to light up that wide
Yeah,
receiver?
exactly. I think there was enough time to adjust moving forward there, but I don't. That's a hard one. That's a hard call. I agree with you because that's my first thought when I saw it was like, I think he had to place that there.
Yeah. Again, you see two receivers in the same vicinity, and you wonder what's the deal with these routes. Like
Yeah.
how are they so close? Is it because he had to throw it when he threw it that they look so close together? But
Did one of the receivers make a wrong read with the placement of the coverage and run the
uh-huh.
wrong route?
Yeah, see that's those are the questions that you can't necessarily get answered unless you're talking to the coach.
Yeah, exactly. Because this 21 looks like he's going to run a shallow cross, and then he like turns it upfield,
Yeah,
and
almost
it's
like a follow route, but it's just so close. They're so close. I just don't know if it's a product of how fast he threw the ball
yeah,
or if there was just an issue that these two guys are too close to each other.
yeah. Who installed that play?
Uh, I don't know.
It was a GA. No, I really like the calmness of the feet. I
Yes, I mean, he's delivering balls and giving guys an opportunity to, to run after the catch.
and these aren't, we talk and you always hear people say all the time, well, the windows are just so much wider in the college game. And yes, they are. They tend to be. But this is not an easy window. It's not the easiest window here.
Hmm. And I mean, with the way in which the NFL is officiated now, and the protection that the wide receiver or the a defense's wide receiver has, these windows are a lot more open than they used to
Yes.
be
Yes.
because you don't have safeties bearing down on wide receivers anymore, looking to just absolutely decapitate them.
And we're spreading the
Unless your
field
name's
more often.
Cam Chancellor,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh
Unless
my
you're,
gosh, that guy, so
yep.
scary. I'm pretty sure I would retire if I was good enough to have made it to the NFL. One hit, and I would have just been like, you know what, I'm good.
Yep. But he knows he's throwing it right here.
He's
And that
throwing it
would,
right when that guy, before he's even out of the window, it's out of his hand. So he
yep.
knows where he's going. It's a great job by him.
Yep. And this is an anticipation so important here because you will see this in the pros. Quarterbacks, especially early in their career, who are questioning whether they should throw this. And they wait, wait, wait. They're still waiting right here. And when they do actually make the throw, it's about right here. And they may have a much stronger arm, but they're releasing it late enough that now they're trying to squeeze it in an impossible place. And the ball doesn't arrive here. The ball may have to arrive here where
Hmm.
there's a tighter squeeze between the two defenders. So yeah, the anticipation, the 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 poise, the ability to adjust again from off kilter plays to get back into rhythm. If the only thing I would look at right now that I'm saying is, we can talk about that little yip type of movement, and we can talk about that he gets too aggressive sometimes because he's too confident in his abilities, which you
Hmm.
say that about just about every top player who is entering into the draft. You could say that about a lot of them.
Yeah. And if you're not saying it about him, there's probably something wrong there.
Yeah. 3rd and 4. All right. So they're up by 10, 3rd and 4 on this play. Got a little inside shade, and this jumped very well, but still has there's enough zip on that ball. I'm not loving that throw, but it gets there. That was, I mean, like I'd project that and say he'd probably get picked off in the
That's a
NFL.
pick. I mean, that's probably a pick in the NFL.
Yeah.
But it's one of those. Are you throwing it because you know you can, or are you throwing it because you don't know?
Right.
Those are the things that we can't answer. We have to assume that he's doing these things because he knows he has the ability to do so.
Yeah. And we can say that if he studies and plays with maturity and approaches the game like the professional that you would expect, um, though that doesn't always happen with any type of player in the
Hmm.
league. But if he does that, if you believe in him to be that kind of player, he's going to make that adjustment in the NFL. That's not a thing where you go, oh, well, he does that in college. He's not a good prospect. No, the answer is most prospects do this from one time to the other. The question is he going to work hard enough to know when to have a little bit more selectivity? Mm,
Yeah, I'm looking at it. It's the video's a little jumpy on this one now. It's kind of
okay. I can
going
tell you
frame by frame by frame.
I can tell you this. I think on this play, I like the placement and the velocity on this throw. It's a little bit flatter throw than what you might think with a guy like Doxson, because Doxson did get behind the corner. And I
Uh-huh.
think he forces the corner to have to be more aggressive because the corner's panicked. It's like this ball is whistling over me. I mean, it's got a little loft to it, obviously, but I think that he put a little bit more zip on this ball to beat the corner, and the corner ends up having to force the action.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely, when a quarterback's able to get you, to commit like that, that makes a big difference. Okay,
Yeah.
so here's a.
This one's a points on the board left, there. We're going to see
Mhm.
it from this angle as
Mhm.
well.
And you see the concept. The defense they're completely confused.
Yeah.
You've gotta cash that in.
Yeah. And what's your take on guys? Again, this is one game,
Mhm.
but we're seeing like, suddenly the game is, this is a chance to ice the game and
Mhm.
put it away. And we've seen three or four throws in the same series or in the past couple, here that were not as on the money as they were earlier on, but still with the time. Do you how do you approach that when you're evaluating when you see it, say in one game? Um, do you if tell folks when you see something like this what you do to make sure that it's not that you're saying, well, this is just it happens from time to time, to to you either saying it happens time to time, or you saying, what's it take for you to project? I guess that's the better question. I don't know why I can't ask the question well, Gene, but what does it take for you to look at something like this, and how often for you to make the conclusion that I have concerns that in the fourth quarter of games when it's important that he gets too tight?
Well, I think you have to obviously, and you know this because you do this all the time. You can't make that determination off of one film.
Right.
I've obviously seen a lot of Trevone Boykin, so I know that he has that killer instinct. Um, but if I see this and I'm looking at this film, and this is my first film that I'm evaluating, I have to make a note. I've got to make a note. Hey, check him out in the fourth quarter. Check him out when on those plays that should be gimme plays. Is he taking advantage of gimme plays? Is he closing out teams in the fourth quarter when he has a chance to, um, step on their throat? Is he taking advantage? Those are things that I'll be looking for in the next films that I see, because I really wanna be able to determine whether or not this is just, oh well, that was just that play, and that's not indicative of who he is, or man, is this a pattern? This is a pattern that I see, and now I have concerns about what he's going to do when it gets a little tight,
Right.
especially in the fourth quarter.
And certainly in this particular game, I think the way you say that's great. And because, yeah, I mean, this is for me watching this. This is honestly my first game watching Boykin. I've heard lots about him. I've tried. I don't tend to follow narratives, but I've heard about him. I've been looking forward to watching him, and it would for me. I'm like, yeah, I want to see more games now to see what you're
Yeah,
saying.
and I'll tell you this. A normal game like this for Trevone Boykin, of those plays that he doesn't make, that's normally a 40 plus blowout for TCU.
Yeah, and if
And that's what he's done. That's why you see those ridiculous, video game numbers that TCU have put up since he's been the
yeah,
quarterback, and very similar with our next guy in Mayfield, that they're taking advantage of those gimmies. So
yes,
if I'm looking at it and I'm evaluating for the first time, I'm going, okay, I need to know, is this the norm, or is this just an anomaly? But I have to make a note. If I'm evaluating, I've got to make a note of it. I've got to look for it again. And if it
absolutely.
starts to show that pattern through the four or more films that I watch on him, then I know that that's a concern.
Good, excellent, excellent. And if you, for folks who haven't looked at his stats, Minnesota actually is probably one of his least statistically strong Is statistically one of his weakest games as a passer, and he still threw for nearly 62% of a completion percentage. We saw a lot of nice throws in this game, but where he had some of those clear misses, as you said, those video game numbers, he's had one, two, three, 4 games with over 400 yards and five, six, 7 games with at least 300 yards. So you're looking at a guy who had 246 yards in this game, and we saw where he left some of the points on the board, yards left, off the box score here. But you see the context of what that was. So that's totally supports your point in terms of that he has often finished, because you've seen from the stat standpoint what it could be if he hit those, because he was doing it in other games. Before we go on, we've been on this show for a little bit, and I thought, just from a production standpoint, let's take a little break. I'm sure you could
Okay.
use one. I could use one for a minute. We'll take 5 minutes. I'll reinvite you onto another show, and we'll label this kind of part two, and we'll do Mayfield coming up next, and we'll run that as like a separate show, but we'll put them both on one post for people to be able to look and understand that there's going to be a context that applies to both. Sound good to you?
Sounds good to me.
All right, man. Thanks again, folks, and stay tuned. We will be back with Mr. Mayfield.
All right.
All right.